Alright, hey guys, so I finally finished the third book in the V.C. Andrews Castile series, Fallen Hearts. I had the movie stored on my DVR forever, and just sort of got around to finally reading the book. This time I did the ebook, which was a little challenging for me because I don't have a real e-reader, so I was reading it on my iPad, and even just reading each chapter, I kind of had to read a little bit and then stop and then go back to it later on because I was getting a lot of eye strain and headaches. So it took me a little while to get through it, although all in all I think I finished the book in about a week, which for me I think is pretty good. But next time I definitely want to try to find the physical book or see if I could somehow manage to get another free trial of Audible. So finish the book and then immediately watch the movie. One thing I will say that pleasantly surprised me about the movie, in spite of everything they got wrong, which I'll get into in just a minute, was how many lines in the movie were actually verbatim from the book. Different lines I thought, oh wow, they said that exact line in the book. I don't know if it was like that in the previous movies and I just hadn't paid attention, but anyway, I thought that was it pleasantly surprised me. So let me just get to my notes here on my phone. Okay, so I'm just going to go from beginning to end of the movie / book and tell you how things were different in the book versus the movie. So, let's see. Tom's death was in the second book, and Heaven knew from the first book that she and her siblings were being sold. So I don't understand why she acted like she just found out, saying, Luke sold us? They knew all along that they were being sold, so that to me was very confusing. Her whole I'm gonna make Luke think he's seeing a ghost as revenge wasn't exactly like that. In the book, Luke was usually the one out front at the circus saying, step right up and come to the circus. But that night that Heaven decided to show herself to Luke, all dressed like her mother, and by the way, she had dyed her hair blonde, not dark, because her mother had blonde hair. So once again, they got that wrong. And shatter his world by telling him he was not her father. Luke was behind the curtain with the lion in the cage. One of the other circus guys said the lion tamer was too drunk, so Luke had to fill in. I sort of covered this in my previous video. Heaven went behind the curtain, but as soon as he saw her, she thought, what am I doing here? And decided to leave and ran out. But then she heard yelling and commotion and asked what was happening, and they said the lion escaped, and Luke was trying to get hold of him, and Tom jumped in to try to pry him off of Luke and got mauled to death. In the book, Luke did not accidentally shoot Tom, and Heaven didn't see the attack because she had run out just before. Also, the grandfather wasn't in the third book. He died in the second book. So the first movie cuts the grandfather out with saying he was in jail for selling moonshine, only to bring him back in the third movie when he was in the first and second book quite a bit. Logan's proposal to Heaven actually took place in his family's pharmacy. He gave her a giant ice cream sundae. Tony never cared or asked why Heaven didn't tell Logan he was her father, and Logan was a lot more involved in the Winterow Toy Factory than Heaven, but she did pick the site for it. Also, just a little side note, in the book, I don't think Tony ever cared when she brought Drake to Farthie or said surely someone else could take the boy. So, let's talk about Jillian. Jillian was crazy like in the movie, only she thought Heaven was Lee. She never recognized her as Heaven, and her hair was supposed to be crazy and straw-like, and her makeup was caked on. Also, Heaven didn't find Troy in the maze. She was in his cottage and thought Tony had hired someone to replace him to continue making toys, and saw someone go into the basement to the tunnels and followed, telling the person to show themselves, and that's when she saw it was Troy. Before that, Heaven had woke in the middle of the night at Farthie one night, thinking someone was in her room, and found muddy footprints. Troy confessed it was him. You see, some of the servants thought there was a ghost wandering Farthie, which turned out to be Troy. And Jillian thought she was seeing Troy's ghost in the book. He tried to tell her he was alive and felt sorry that maybe her thinking he was a ghost might have led to her suicide, but still hated her since Jillian had hated him since he was a little boy, when she first got together with his brother Tony. Also, when Heaven and Troy slept together, she wanted to stay with him, but it was Troy who said it couldn't be and told her that he was going to leave and she wouldn't know when or where he went. One time in the book, Heaven actually went to Troy's cottage and looked through the window and saw Tony sitting in the cottage sitting in Troy's chair because I guess he missed Troy. Let's see. Tony didn't have to build an east wing for them. It was already there, and Heaven and Logan agreed to stay at Farley, with Logan making frequent trips to Winterow to work on the new factory, and eventually he bought a big house there for him and Heaven. He thought they should have a nice house to entertain important people. And also, the Willie's party for the new factory was outdoors, not inside. Logan was actually in Winterow, and Heaven was back at Farley when Fanny called to tell her she was pregnant, and Logan was the father. Actually, in the book, as soon as Fanny told her Logan was the father, she immediately thought, well, it could be Randall's. And Fanny says, why, I haven't been with him in a month of Sundays. And I thought, a month of Sundays? There are still 6 other days in the week. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny in the book. So, when Logan returned to Farley, Heaven said, tell me what happened, and he did. There was no funeral for Tom in the book, with Luke, his wife Stacy, and their son Drake there. Heaven and Tony came home after a night at the theater, and there was a telegram addressed to Tony. So, the telegram was not sent to the grandfather, Toby. It was sent to Tony, informing of Luke and Stacy's car crash. Heaven wondered why it was sent to Tony, and Tony actually had made all the funeral arrangements and set up the trust for Drake. At the Willie's party, which Fanny wasn't invited to, she did take Drake, but Heaven did not forgive her at this point. Also, Tony came to the party to beg Heaven's forgiveness, but didn't stay long. During the trial, Heaven's lawyer, who was a guy in the book, by the way, so they got that wrong, told her if she proceeded with the custody hearing over Drake, Tony would be subpoenaed and tell the truth on the stand that he was Heaven's father. So I think her not wanting Tony to have anything to do with this had something to do with her deciding to go to Fanny. Also, Heaven had already told Logan much earlier about Tony being her father, so it wasn't news to him when the lawyer brought it up. And in the book, it was actually Fanny's landlord from Nashville who testified to Fanny having sex for money. Reverend Wise saying her landlord called to let him know what Fanny was doing didn't happen, and Fanny never stood up and said, liar, you raped me. In the book, she told Heaven, I thought maybe if I let Reverend Wise climb into my bed, he would love me. And in the book, when Heaven asked where Randall was, she said Randall left because he needed time to think, but I told him if you don't love me, don't bother coming back. As opposed to the movie where she just wails to Heaven that he left and he's probably not coming back. So in the book, I think Fanny sort of had a lot more pride or dignity and, kind of wanted to turn the situation around so as to not make it seem like he just left and he's probably never coming back. Poor me. When Heaven received the music box in the book, she said it was Troy's way of letting her know he was the father, and she told her daughter Annie, maybe someday you will understand why I did what I did. So there you have it. That's how the book was much different from the movie. Overall, I do think in the movie it was a lot more of them changing things from how they happen in the book as opposed to the stuff they left out from the book. I mean, they still left stuff out, obviously, but overall, I thought it was the stuff that they changed from the book, how it happened, outweighed the stuff that they left out of the book, from the book completely. But the movie was just terrible. Once again, they totally got it wrong. So now I have to find the next book, which I believe is Gates of Paradise, read that, and then watch the movie Gates of Paradise and do my next review. So Hope you guys enjoy, and let me know what you think.